Hello, and welcome to Wine with Wita, the podcast that is dedicated to engaging with health professionals and caregivers in meaningful discussions. I'm your host, Rita Shamoon, or as my clients call me, Wita. I'm a pediatric speech pathologist, and I am so excited to have you here. Each week, we deep dive into connecting you with caregivers and healthcare professionals, sharing their insights, stories, and key takeaways to help you with your child's diagnosis and your journey. Whether you are a parent, healthcare professional, a lifetime learner, or simply a wine enthusiast, you're in the right place. So let's sit back and relax and enjoy today's episode. Today on Wine with Wita, I'm joined by Professor Laura Miller, an occupational therapist with over 25 years' experience supporting children with disabilities and their families across Australia and around the world. She now leads the ENVISAGE Families program, a groundbreaking initiative designed to empower caregivers and strengthen family wellbeing. Laura's work shines a spotlight on something we just don't talk enough about. Supporting the child also means supporting the parent. Today, we'll explore why carers need care too, the misconception around asking for help, and how programs like Envisage are changing lives for families everywhere. Welcome, Laura, to Wine with Wita today.
Thanks for having me, Rita.
I'm really looking forward to our discussion today because on Wine with Wita, I share real life stories, and the main topic is isolation, burnout. But parents just keep on going because their child needs that 24/7 care or multiple appointments as well, attending multiple appointments as well. So I feel like this, in the spirit of Carers Month with Envisage, let's talk about how we can help parents return to themselves whilst also caring for their children. So, Laura, you've worked in many different countries and communities. Can you share what drew you into supporting children with disabilities and their families?
I have always had a passion for working alongside people and being able to shine a light on people's strengths and what they can do and what they love to do, and doing it in the places that they love to do it with the people they love to do it with. And so for me, working with children and families really gave me that opportunity to form deep connections with families really early in their experience of either a health condition or a chronic illness or a developmental disability, and to be able to work with families in partnership over an extended period of time, not just an isolated admission to hospital or a single appointment, but rather be able to build that relationship and build that partnership to work together over extended period of time. And so that's really what drew me into working with children and their families from really young all the way through up until that transition into adulthood.
It's such a special role that we have as allied health professionals, isn't it? For me, as a speech pathologist, it's so much more than the child talking, or so much, in your case, helping them develop fine motor skills or play and regulation and so forth. It's, in my role, helping the parents believe in themselves and giving them that develop that intrinsic motivation that they can do the best for their child.
Absolutely. And I think that parents, when they come into a parenting role, might feel really disempowered when they're interfacing with lots of different professionals or services for the first time. Often, particularly if your child has developmental concerns or a worry, your life might feel like it's getting taken over by the decision making of other people or so-called experts or professionals in their field. And it's a privilege to be able to work with families, to be able to re-empower them to take control of their lives, to live their lives in a way that is guided by what's most important to them, what they value as a family and what they value as being a parent, and be able to make decisions that are in the best interests of their child and family, within the context of the community that they're living in at the time. So it's a really wonderful opportunity to be able to build those connections and partnerships and walk
Mm.
alongside parents rather than being the expert or the dictator around what needs to happen and when it needs to happen and why it
Yeah.
needs to happen.
I like how you said the word expert. Now, I had a chat with Rose not long ago, as well, part of the ENVISAGE program, and she said a wonderful phrase that I now use with my patients. It's not about being the expert or consulting with experts, it's working with people who have the expertise. And parents are also the expert of their child, and they are bringing their expertise to the table. I'm bringing my expertise. You're bringing, Laura, as an OT, your expertise. And we work collaboratively together to provide the best care for the child that we're treating. And this is something I want parents listening to this podcast. Yes, I have my clinical education and clinical experience, but you are the expert of your child. You are equally just as important in the role of your child's intervention journey.
It's such an important piece of that collaborative partnership. And I think some parents feel that when they're told they're the expert on the child, that can feel quite overwhelming because
Mm,
sometimes they might feel, actually, no, I don't feel like I'm the expert. I need guidance and I need support. But I often talk with the parents that are part of the ENVISAGE program about, you know, your child and your family best, and over time you become the expert on your child. And as you said, you know, we all bring different knowledge, skills, experience to this partnership. And one of the things that Rose, who you mentioned before, said many years ago was the importance of lived experience, and that
yes.
we can and we should think of parents' lived experience as valid evidence. We often talk about evidence based interventions and evidence informed interventions, but we also need to be thinking about lived experience as informing how we work with and alongside families.
Yeah. Oh, Laura, this is going to be an amazing conversation. You can see my smile just beaming because I can feel this connection with these parents that just need to hear that they can and they are worthy, as well as providing the information for their child and supporting them along the way. So, thank you for this conversation. In your years of practice, Laura, how have you seen the role of the caregiver evolve?
So I've been working clinically and also now into research as well as in management roles for a number of decades, and it's very interesting to see how that idea of parent as knowing their child best or parent as expert has changed over time. And I think before there used to be a checkbox in service provision around, you know, family centred service and inclusion of parents in the delivery of services. And I have seen a shift in that over time towards a more genuine collaborative partnership approach of including families as integral and valuable and central members of the team. But I think that also brings with it extra complexity for families in that they are supporting their child and their child's development and their child's well-being at home. And they're also supporting other children in their family and
Mm,
partners and extended family. And then they also have this extended relationship with health professionals and school systems and other systems that they're also managing and interacting with on a daily basis. And so, whilst we might think that we have a relationship with this family that's supportive and encouraging and empowering, the, many of our families are having that relationship with multiple service
yeah.
providers, with multiple people across many different sectors. And the complexity of that can be
Be
overwhelming at
exhausting.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't even keep up with my own three children. Imagine keeping up with multiple health professionals.
Exactly. And these are relationships that families never wanted.
No,
They're
exactly
forced
right.
into these situations where that they are having to maintain these relationships and partnerships with people that really they don't want in their lives, but they have to. And that comes with an additional complexity, as I said, but also a burden around the management of those things. And then when we're talking about different systems that families are needing to interface with, they've become advocates for their children and lawyers to manage contracts with service providers and tax accountants to manage the expenses associated with their children's services, and liaison officers to be able to connect all of the people that they need to work together in order to best support their child. And so I think that raising a child with a developmental concern or disability has always had complexities, but over time, I do think that has increased, and what we're expecting parents to do, because we are saying, well, you're the expert, you know your child the best. We want you involved in all of these things, which is the right thing to do, absolutely. But we also need to acknowledge that comes with increased demands on parents' time, on the resources, on the capacity they have to then be involved in other family members' lives that they need, that they need and want to be involved in, and that all comes at sometimes a physical, sometimes an emotional, sometimes a mental health, sometimes a financial toll to families. And it's really important to recognise that families raising children with developmental concerns or disabilities have this very complex network of people that they're working with, and that does have a significant impact on their own well-being.
Yeah, I think that's a really important message to share with any new clinician as well, listening to this podcast. Because as a young therapist, I reflected, I would tell parents, reduce your screen time, make sure you play with your child, do X, Y, Z to achieve the communication goal. That in itself is a massive task for many parents. But on top of their occupational therapist telling the same thing, physio, social work, psych, and home duties and NDIS management, it is incredibly overwhelming and exhausting. When things are just too hard, what happens? They just don't get it done, right? So this is where young clinicians need to recognize what's reality versus expectations. Yeah. And sometimes simply being present and giving a family member one task. And if that involves reducing your language or reducing your questions with your child, then that is simply enough.
It's so important, Rita, and it's something I feel really passionate about, is that when you're caring for a child with developmental concerns or disability, you are shifted to focus into this different role of advocacy and home therapy, or taking your child to therapy, or navigating a system, or providing essential care needs to your children. And people have lost touch with the idea that parents, the most important role that parents have, are being parents to their children, and that connection and belonging that you see between caregivers and children, and families growing and learning and developing and changing together. And it's really important for us as clinicians working with families that we actually see parents as parents first, and
Yes.
that we empower them to take on that role of parenting as their most important role, and that they live lives that are aligned with their hopes and dreams and values for their family, rather than a life that is dictated by therapy appointments and goals and outcomes and funding.
Yeah.
And so giving parents back, and that's why I call it re-empowering parents, is
Mm.
re-empowering parents to take back that role as parenting as their most important role, and developing that sense of connection and belonging with their child is so important. And then for us as clinicians, it does require us to take a step outside what might be our comfortable clinical role,
Mm.
that we see might be speech pathology or occupational therapy or physiotherapy, and ask parents, how are you going? How are
Yeah.
things going at home? How is this working for you? is this working in a way that's actually building capacity in your family, that's helping your child to participate and enabling your family to flourish and thrive, and enabling you as a parent to flourish and thrive? Or are there things that are actually impeding that and getting in the way of
Yeah.
that? And I think that when I graduated many years ago, where we had the opportunity to be able to step away from that traditional idea of what goals are we working on today, to be able to think holistically about the child and the family and how that child and family is engaging and participating in their community and doing all of the things that are important to them as a family, rather than focusing on very distinct goals and outcomes that are focused on the
Yeah.
child. And so it is important and I really advocate this for clinicians, for new graduates and for people that have been working in the field for a long period of time, to build your own knowledge, skills and capacity to be able to ask questions, provide support, help parents navigate their own health and well-being and their role as parents
Yeah.
in raising a young child with a developmental concern or disability, rather than solely focusing on what a goal might be written in an NDIS plan
Yeah.
or for a school IEP.
Laura, you reflected when you were a young clinician many years ago, even when I was a new graduate, it's a very different practice to what it is now. And we're talking about carer burnout. And a common theme that I'm noticing, particularly with NDIS, parents feel they need to occupy all their funds so it doesn't run out. Yeah. So, what does that mean in reality? Accessing more appointments, accessing more services that might not even be needed right now for the child, but just so their child doesn't miss out on the funds. Do you feel that's a common contributing factor for the carers' burnout lately?
I do, because I think that the system has been, and I don't want to,
No,
be
no, we're not here. We're not disrespecting the system at all,
disrespect.
but we're just
Yeah,
understanding what is
I
causing this burnout more.
absolutely, and I think that there is a focus. There's been a shift in focus to only child outcomes, not child and family, and that
Mm,
that and missing the idea that children grow, develop at their own time, at their own speed, in their own
mm,
context, in their own way, and that actually that idea of being, becoming, and belonging is much more important than ticking off a developmental checklist of I can, do this ages and stages, and then this next stages and stages. So it has shifted a focus back towards what I feel is more that body structure and function and impairment focus that we see within the ICF, rather than a focus on activity and participation, which is
yeah,
what actually intervention is meant to be about participating in meaningful life activities with the people that you want to be with and the
around.
environments that you love. And so I do feel that parents feel enormous pressure to be maximising the amount of, or what we would call in research word, the dosage of therapy, or how much therapy can you get, and
Mm,
more must mean better, and it absolutely, more does not mean better. And that we actually know that children participating in everyday life situations in their family and in their community is a very powerful way of learning and developing and growing and developing that sense of being and becoming and belonging and connection in your community, which is so important. So there is an enormous pressure on parents to go to numerous therapy appointments. And one of the things that I've seen is this fragmentation of the delivery of services, where previously speech physio, OT, psychology would work together
yes.
and be able to provide a comprehensive, holistic um, service to a child and family, is now this fragmented service where you have to attend multiple appointments with different people in different environments at different time. And we're doing things like taking children out of school to do therapy when the goal is participation in the school environment, or we're saying, sorry, I can't do that swimming lesson because I need to go to my physiotherapy appointment, or I can't go to my ballet class because I need to go and see my OT. And I feel like we've lost the focus of what intervention is meant to do, which is
Yeah.
support children to participate in everyday life experiences. And that's really, if we could actually support parents to be able to negotiate with service providers and within the service systems that we work with around supporting their children to engage in everyday life
Mm.
activities that are community based and important to them, then I think we would see a shift in the amount of strain and stress on parents around
Yeah.
meeting all of their therapy obligations in order to maintain their funding.
I want to raise an important point. So I interviewed a mother many months ago and she said, I did not, when I first fell pregnant with my child, I had dreams to take him to the library, dreams to take him to coffee dates. But because I have so many appointments, I can no longer reach that dream of having a baby chino with my son or taking him to the to the library and to the park. But what I want to raise here, having a baby tuna in a cafe is also therapy. Going to the park is also therapy. And what I love about it, it's naturalistic and also can support the idea of generalization, which means helping the goals that we're working on in our clinical space roll over into the child's everyday environment. So, as a mum and as a therapist, I strongly recommend if you need to cancel treatment for a week, that is okay. Reconnect to yourself, build that connection with your child, go to the park, have that coffee date, because those moments of joy for me are more powerful to what you actually achieve in that one clinical appointment.
I couldn't agree with you more, Rita. And honestly,
Mm.
in the Envisage program, we talk a lot about families identifying what their values are and what's most
Yes.
important to them, and then making decisions that align with those values. And part of that is identifying that everyday experiences in life are really important,
Mm.
valuable moments of learning, development, connection, belonging, which is much more powerful than a 30-minute appointment with your
Yes.
therapist in a clinical treatment room that your child might have cried to go to because they didn't
Yeah,
want to
they didn't want to
leave what
go.
they were doing.
Mm.
So it's such an important, and it is, I feel really sympathetic towards parents who are really trying to do the best thing by their children and are wanting to get the most amount of support and services available for them in those early years. And yes, I'm not diminishing the importance of therapy and participation in some specialised services to get support, but we really need to amplify how important those everyday life experiences are, and that exactly what you said in terms of reconnecting with yourself about what's important
Mm.
to you and what's important to your family and what does that look like for you, and how you then use therapy or interventions or expertise that is available to you to achieve that is what is the most important thing.
Yeah.
um, and when I have families say to me, our lives are currently being ruined by early intervention, we're
That's not
losing
what we want.
yeah, we're losing connection with family. We've lost friends. We can't go out. We're not participating in the things that are important to us because we've got all of this funding and we need to do all of this early intervention. That's not what the purpose of early intervention is for. Early intervention is
Mm.
there to be able to enable you to participate meaningfully in experiences that you and your family want to do together, or individually, whatever's important to you. And really, we should be working as a clinical team within a service and within the community to enable
Yeah.
families to pursue that. And that shift from survival through to thriving and flourishing. And that's
Yeah.
really families, all families deserve thriving and flourishing, and all parents deserve to have good lives where they have good well-being and good physical and mental health. And we all have a responsibility to support families towards that.
Yeah. It's a lovely point to really reflect on the quality versus quantity debate. Yeah. What's quality for you and is the quantity needed? Yeah. Laura, we touched base on some of the challenges these caregivers face. What other challenges do they encounter?
I think that there is um, even though there is, I would say that there is a shift towards highlighting the importance of well-being and self-care for all individuals in our society. I do think that there is still a lot of shame and stigma around
Mm,
parents asking for help, and there is a sense that if you ask for help, it is a reflection that you're not coping, or that you're not doing enough, or that you're not good enough. And I think that one of the things that we really need to work towards is destigmatizing asking for help, and that breaking that barrier of silence, and that actually asking for help is a sign of strength, it's a sign of self awareness, and it's actually something that's really important for family thriving. So, caring for any child, any parent can tell you that raising a child is a tough task.
yeah.
Parenting is a tough task. And when you have added complexities and increasing demands on your time and resources as a family, it is really important to be able to have a support network, connections, services that can support you in that experience of raising your child. And that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's not a sign of not coping. It's actually a really healthy and important part of being able to set up a good support system around you for, caring long term, for being able to look after not only your own health but the health of your child and of all the family. So I think that that's something that I think is really important that we need to work towards now with caregivers. And I think that there is an invisible burden that is placed on families where when you're looking at parenting as a whole, but when you're also looking at a parenting of a child with a developmental concern or disability, the emotional fatigue around constant advocacy, or the mental load of organising everything and making sure everything's working, or the preempting of challenges that might come up and how those are going to be negotiated across multiple different sectors is really quite isolating for families. They often, parents will tell us they feel quite alone in their
Yes.
experience. And I think that one of the things that we've seen as such a powerful part of the ENVISAGE program is families finding each other and being able to share experiences and learn from each other, and realize that they're not alone, and that there are other people that they can connect with and seek support from and learn from and listen to. That sharing of stories is such an important part of then being able to build, your own capacity, knowledge, skills, and well-being to be able to thrive and flourish in that caregiving role over a long period of time.
And I think when caregivers share the same lived experience with another caregiver, there's that sense of vulnerability, but also acceptance that I can take off my mask of my struggles because someone else is in the same boat as me. And exchanging ideas of how do you cope with your burnout, or how do you manage that stigma? What did you do? What resource did you access? It's like an angel sitting on someone's shoulder saying, here, I'm here to guide you. Let me be that voice for you too.
Absolutely. And I think that that shared experience and the connection that families form when they can have those honest, vulnerable conversations around some of the things that they're struggling with and other things that are going really well. I think one of the parents that I've spoken to said that they've shared things within the Envisage group of parents that they are with that they've never actually said out loud to anybody else. And to have that safe space where they can be listened to and heard, and then for people to be supportive and encouraging, and provide a listening ear and feeling seen and heard and valued, but then also some practical tools and strategies around how to manage that situation, what they have done, what's worked for them. That peer-to-peer connection and peer-to-peer support is so
So
important.
powerful.
And
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Now, if you're listening to this podcast and your head is nodding as I'm nodding, listening to what Laura is saying, and you are feeling like you want to speak to someone who is in the same lived experience, Envisage is a remarkable program that you can actually access, and all the show details are in the show notes. So please don't hesitate, ask for help, and contact Envisage. Now, Laura, carer burnout is something you've deeply researched and discussed quite in depth tonight. What does it look like? Because my burnout is different to my husband's burnout. And how can parents and caregivers recognize it before it reaches a crisis point?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Rita, where you said it's different for everyone. And I think that people have an expectation that they have to reach a certain limit or something drastic has to happen before they say that they have reached burnout. But I think there are elements that you can see along the way around disengaging or reducing your involvement in things that you love to do, finding things that previously brought you joy actually becoming quite tedious or difficult to engage in, feeling overwhelmed by things that you previously felt that you managed quite well, and not being able to kind of quite put your finger on why you feel that something's different now. Or there might be a particular catalyst where something's happened and actually your reserves to be able to deal with that situation have changed significantly, because over a long period of time you have been trying to manage and trying to deal with all these complexities in your life, but actually haven't been addressing your own health and
Needs.
well-being. And I think it's important to understand that self-care, is a very nuanced term now, and there is a lot of discussion about you need to look after yourself, or you need to do some self-care, or you need to take care of yourself. But actually, self-care looks very different for people, and being able to find time and opportunity to do those things that refill your cup, that bring you joy, that settle your mind, that bring you calm, that keep you grounded, that make you feel that you're connected. Though doing those things or seeing that you're no longer doing those things are the kinds of signs that we say with parents that are, being approaching that stage of burnout. And it's not a I think there's one of the things that we talk about in Envisage is there's no shame in asking for help, and there's no shame in putting your hand up and saying this isn't working for me anymore, and that actually doing that early when you see things are starting to get a bit wobbly, or you see things are becoming more challenging than what they used to be, is really important to preventing that stage of burnout. And I I can't say that there is a magic pill that you can take or something that you can do that is going to be the thing that works for you. Often it's actually something that you need to work at and find out what works for you and how it works for you, and whether that's just carving out a couple of minutes every day to stare at the sky, breathe in the trees and look at the sun, or is it having a cup of tea by yourself,
Yeah.
or is it going to the gym, or is it listening to 2 minutes of your favorite podcast? It's so different for everyone, and I think that that's the important piece around self-care and burnout, is that it's very different for everyone. What's going to work for you is not necessarily going to work for somebody else, but actually taking time to spend a moment to reflect on, what parts of my life um, do I feel really connected and grounded, and what
Mm.
parts of my life do I feel that there is a little bit of fragmentation or friction, or it's not working for me. I feel sad about this, and what things can I do that can start to bring some healing, or to bring some joy, or to bring some sense of calm or groundedness
Yeah.
back into those areas.
Laura, you mentioned there's no shame in asking for help. There shouldn't be guilt around asking for help. Now, as a mum and all the mums that I work with, it's easier said than done, right? But in this last point, you mentioned reflective moments. Check, what points am I feeling tired? What's not bringing me joy? And is this the kind of discussions that you have in the Envisage program to help parents digest and really reflect on those miniature moments that spark their joy in their day?
Absolutely. The program is a series of 5 sessions that build upon each other, thinking about different topics that are really important, meaningful, and relevant to families. The program's been co-designed with caregivers raising children with developmental concerns, so every element of the program is really tied to parents' lived experience. And one of the things that we do in the program is reconnecting with what's most important to you and what matters most to you,
Yeah.
and then thinking about, how are you making decisions, how are you living your life, how are you engaging in the world with your child and family that either align with those values, or are, creating some friction that actually don't feel quite right. And then from there we talk about well-being and what does that look like for you, and we talk about what are the small things that you used to do that you no longer do, or that you're interested in doing that you would like to explore, and how could you create one moment for yourself within the next day, within the next week, that would enable you to engage in that, or to increase your involvement in that activity. And like I said before, it's very
Yeah.
varied for every parent, and everyone has a different experience of that. But creating the space to have that moment of reflection and be able to think about what would work for you and what would actually be helpful to you in order for you, your own well-being to be enhanced, um, can be really tricky for families,
It
because
is, yeah.
particularly for parents where they are doing everything in their lives to support their children, to support their child outcomes, to support children well-being, to support their family, there's that sense that self-care selfish, that actually if I stop and do this, that it's I need to be doing things for other people rather than doing things for myself. But uh, I have kind of two kind of thoughts on this. Often families will say, and it says a lot, there's a lot of evidence in the literature to say families and parents that are well and are functioning well and have good well-being have better outcomes for their children. So if you can't find it in yourself to do something just for you, know that actually by doing something for you, you're also helping your child and family.
Yeah.
But I also really advocate for parents to challenge that, that actually looking after yourself for yourself is really important. Yes, looking after yourself to help your family and child is important and is a good outcome of self-care, but actually also looking after yourself because you are an important, valuable, and your own well-being is really important is
Yeah.
another key aspect.
This is something that I want to say. We know that the research shows that when parents care for themselves, there's better outcomes for the child. Why not include it in the NDIS plan for the parent? Why not have services so parents can obtain under the NDIS? That's a food for thought. I'm sure I think about it all the time. How can we support parents' mental health and give them a service that's included in the child's plan? But we'll leave that for another discussion, I think. That's
I have a
another
lot
big
to
debate.
say about that.
There's a lot to say about that. Absolutely. Laura, I love On Wine with Wita sharing success stories because that instills hope, optimism, that there is somewhat light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of clients. Can you share an example or a story of how the Envisage program has impacted a family, positively impacted a family?
Oh goodness, there's lots of stories that I feel like that I can share, and I'll probably share. I'll share a few examples because I think it's important to see that the program is really focused, and its goal is to empower caregivers to feel confident and competent in their parenting experience, so that they experience improve well-being, improve confidence, and improve family functioning. But the impact and benefits of Envisage are beyond that. And families come back and tell us that, 1 month, 2 months, 4 months, 1 year down the track, they're in a conversation with a service provider or they're in a conversation at a school, and all of a sudden that what they've talked about and learnt through Envisage comes back to them, and they're able to apply that in that particular situation. But I think we have recently delivered a program with a group of families based at a school, and those families have found each other. And where it was a group of young mums and experienced mums from all different backgrounds whose children attended the same school, they have been able to really find their voice again and their value in who they are. They feel much more empowered as experts in their child's care to be able to access the services that they need. But it's beyond health or disability. It's moved into being able to communicate with the school administration about what they need for their child and family at school. It's being able to enroll in a TAFE course to be able to build their
Mm.
own confidence in getting back into the workforce. It's been about taking the brave step forward to seek formal diagnosis for their child when that was something that they were very scared to do. Um, and so, that's an example of a group program where every person in that program had a different experience. We've had other parents talk to us about Envisage being a lifeline where they have come up from being underwater for many
Oh.
years, where they finally felt that they have now got their head above water, where they can breathe and that they can um, think about their family and their circumstances and their life situation in a very different way, where they are no longer trying to change or fix their child, but rather they're celebrating the uniqueness of their child and the strengths of their child and all of the wonderful things that they can do together as a family. Yes, it might look different to how they expected, but actually it's given them this entirely new perspective on life and what's important to them. Um, and their
That's
family.
life changing.
Absolutely. And I
That's
think
huge.
it sounds, people talk about Envisage as this transformational space where you have the opportunity to really reframe how you think about your life, how you think about your child,
Mm.
how you think about your family. And like I said, it might happen in the first week, it might happen 5 months later, or it might happen 5 years later. But I think that through all of the stories that we hear from families, and I have a beautiful story that I'm going to leave to one of our parents that I know that you're going to talk to, um,
Okay.
about how Envisage changed her and her family. But I think it is a transformational space. It is not a how-to guide. It's not a fix-it guide. But it is a transformational space about how you really think, feel, act, talk differently, in a way that's really empowering to you as a parent, really valuing you as a parent and your expertise on your child and family and you as a person, but then also how you then engage in the world, as that expert on your child. So yeah, it's hard to pick a specific,
So many. I
a
guess that's the
specific.
it's like it's that's why it's so amazing. Like it's not just one, and you've described it from a community perspective, a life-changing perspective for caregivers, and the impact that has on the child would be unmeasurable. So I feel when you support the community, you support the child. And I think that's such an important message to share.
Absolutely. And I think we've seen families that's, it will say things to us like, I'm so excited, and this, you'll appreciate this, Rita, as a speech pathologist, but they said, we cancelled speech therapy this week and we've decided to focus on ordering ice creams from the Mr. Whippy van at the beach, because we can practice what we're working on in speech, but we can do it at her favourite place, which is the beach, doing something she loves, which is ordering ice creams. And so families just making that big change. And equally, we've had service providers that have come to us, and we've got an amazing network of service providers that are helping us deliver the program. And part of delivering the Envisage program is being trained in the ideas and philosophies and the underpinning values of Envisage, because it is a different way of thinking and it is a different way of working. Um, but we've had service providers that have come to us and said, did you know that families are now contacting us and asking to renegotiate how we engage in therapy with them and renegotiate our plan, our 6 months worth of fortnightly therapy because they'd like to do things differently. And service providers being really excited to be able to shift the way in which they work with families to better align
Yeah.
with what families need and want. And so I think it's a big change. Envisage has big ambitions to really change the way that we as a society think and talk and feel and act around childhood disability and delivery of services, and supporting parents and caregivers as the most important people in children's lives. And
Yes.
I see it happening, in little ripples along the way, but then I also see big changes happening, and
Yeah.
that's really exciting.
It's like you empower parents, not necessarily to take control, but to be in charge of what they define intervention should be like. And I'm that speech pathologist that will say, I'm coming to Mr. Whippy too. Let's do therapy. And I'll order the chocolate syrup on my vanilla ice cream because I'm having fun. I'm
Yeah.
stimulating the child's language. The child's in its element. They're getting ice cream. Who would think speech therapy could happen at the beach with ice cream? But that's the reality. In my practice, I want to get out of the stigma that therapy is in the 4 room office, four ward office, because it's not. It's just a 20-minute insight into what you can do in your everyday life. So, any parent listening, Laura, and I empower you to challenge your therapist and
Mhm.
say, look, research shows it's about supporting a child in their naturalistic environment, creating connection, creating joy, creating that happy moment with my child. How? And ask your therapist, how can I use our current communication goals in these moments that we love to go to? Swimming lessons, ballet lessons, ice cream by the beach. And without a doubt, that will be music to your therapist's ears. It's not about the worksheet, it's about how you can apply it in those happy moments with your child.
Absolutely. I could not endorse that even
Oh, I
more,
want to go
Rita.
have ice cream now, Laura. Laura, if and this is another thing, if any health professionals, Laura, are listening, what's one thing they can do better today to support parents they work with? I just said my little bit about challenging communication goals and the place of treatment. What's your take?
Well, first of all, I'd say please refer your families to ENVISAGE.
Yes, yes,
It's
yes.
a free program that families can access, and it is available across Australia. So I think empowering families to be able to engage in services that are available to them is a really important part of that. The other piece of it is around um, not necessarily upskilling. I think there is upskilling needed, and but clinicians are very well trained in Australia. Um, but I think it would be to reflect on how you, as a health professional, are actually enacting, translating evidence based principles of best practice working with children and families. So, what we would coin the term of family centered service, where a lot of therapists would say, oh, I'm family centered, I work in a family centered way. But actually, to take a moment of reflection and look back and think about what am I, what am I actually doing in my everyday practice that aligns with family centered service, and not just the tick the box. Yes, I see parents as experts on their children, and yes, I involve parents in goal setting, but actually, what are the practices in my service, in my daily interactions with families that really highlight and um, enable parents to experience what true family centered service is like. And I appreciate that there are factors around systems and funding and organisational structures that can make that really difficult. But I think unless we are the voice and action for change, then families are not going to experience what they should deserve and what the best outcomes there are. We know that family centered service is best practice, and that working with children in their home community environments, everyday experiences, is the best way of working with families. So, what are we doing, and how can we do that, and how can we challenge the system, and how can we advocate within our organisations, within our services, within our own practice to ensure that we are delivering services aligned with family centred practice? And I think that um, starts with acknowledging that children exist within a family, and you
Yes.
cannot be providing a service to a child without consideration of that family and their community. And so,
Mhm.
yes, the goal might be that you're working on a specific communication goal, or you're working on a specific activity of daily living. But it is also important to consider that in the context of the whole family, family functioning, community participation, and what is most important. What are we working towards here? We're not
Yeah.
working towards. One of the things that I always do with families when I work clinically is when I talk to parents about what their goals are, I always ask, why is that important to you? So I want my child to learn to play basketball. I want my child, and I say, why? Because I want them to be on the basketball team. Why? Because I want them to be included at school. Why? I want them to feel, I want them to have friends. I want them to feel loved. I want them to feel included. And when you understand the why, that is where you understand what you need to be doing,
Yeah.
because it might not be about the basketball. There are other ways, that might be one mechanism in which you can address the why. but really working with families to understand why these things are important and how we can achieve the why, and
Mm.
is really an important piece. And so I think it's being brave and being courageous to move beyond the goal that's written in the plan and to actually work within that system of best practice, within family centred service, and understanding the why so that we can actually empower families and children to participate in the things that are most important to them and feel
And I think
belong and connection to their community.
and I think alongside that, it's also education to understand the why and how we can get to the why. So in my case as a speech pathologist, parents say, I want my child to talk using big sentences. Why? Because I want them to succeed at school. Why? Because his brother struggled in school. Why? And then when you really, really peel the onion, it's because the parents don't want them to struggle and want them to communicate. So it's not even about the big complex sentence, it's just them getting their needs and wants met. But they just like to amplify this big decorative goal, but the reality is parents just want the child to advocate for themselves without that additional support. So education comes with that, knowing the long goal of complex sentences isn't going to happen yet, but we can achieve a smaller goal now because the child can achieve that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Laura,
I,
this
I
has
really want,
been,
sorry, I was just going to say, I think one of the greatest joys as a clinician is working in partnership with families.
yeah.
I think one of the things I learnt very early on in my career is that I had the university training and I had a little bit of family lived experience, but I learnt so much from my families that I worked with, and that when you really work in a true collaborative partnership and um, listen to families and learn from families and really come from that shared decision making, shared problem solving, shared platform of working out what's going to be best for the child and family, it is such a rewarding and
Mhm.
um, and fulfilling way to work. And I think for clinicians who might be feeling exhausted themselves within a model that sometimes causes friction or grates against either their own personal values or how they were trained at university, they come out into the real world and go, well, hold on, this isn't what I was expecting. I think being able to return to that best practice and family centred service and working in true collaboration with caregivers is not only going to have amazing outcomes for your caregivers in terms of reducing the strain and burden and overwhelm and the feeling of isolation that parents experience. You're working together and helping connect them with the things that they need, but also personally and professionally as a clinician, it will really amplify your experience as a service provider working in this space. And really bring you joy as a
Yes.
professional to go back to what's the most important thing, which is really achieving those fantastic outcomes for children and families that we all went into the profession to work towards. And so I really encourage people to do that and to
Yeah.
start thinking of different ways that they can really go back to working in partnership with families and supporting child and family
Yeah.
and having better outcomes for everyone.
It's such a privilege, isn't it, Laura? I
It
feel
is.
very fortunate to do what I do. It's a blessing every day. Now, everyone listening, as you can hear, we have spoken about Envisage the whole time. It's a free service that you can access. And Laura, 5 sessions?
Yes, so the traditional standard format of Envisage is 5 consecutive sessions that
Mhm.
build on topics that caregivers have told us are really important and valuable early in their experience of parenting. But there are also other formats in terms of 2 or 3 day intensive sessions. It's available both online and in person, face-to-face sessions delivered across Australia in partnership with our ENVISAGE community network. And it's offered at all different times of the day. So mornings, afternoons, evenings, weekends, we're really trying to overcome those barriers that we know are tricky for families. And we also offer specific programs for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families, which is the program co-designed with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. We have culturally and linguistically diverse programs where the program's translated and also interpreted in language. And we also have the ENVISAGE Families traditional program, which is available across Australia. So hopefully there will be a time and place that suits families that they can have a look on the website and sign up for a program that would be most suitable for them.
And for any clinician listening, I think this is like the best gift you could give a patient or a parent at their initial consultation when they're feeling confused, isolated. ENVISAGE is the wonderful gift that we can give them as they embark on this journey. Now, Laura, it has been amazing talking with you this evening. Before we finish up, I ask all my guests, if you were to be a better version of yourself tomorrow, Laura, what word will you apply to yourself today?
I was to be a better. Oh, that's a tricky one, Rita, but I think I have to come back to the word nourish. So
Nourish,
a
good.
good friend of mine told me once that the importance of nourishing yourself, and I think that's whatever that looks like. For me to turn up in the best version of myself tomorrow, I need to nourish myself.
Love that. Nourish emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually.
Yeah.
This conversation has been so nourishing. Thanks, Laura. It's been wonderful having you on this evening. And for everybody else, please refer to the show notes to get in touch with ENVISAGE to support you and your family or another family that you know going through the same experience. And thank you again. Another episode of Wine with Wita will be brought to your ears next week. Take care, everyone. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Wine with Wita. I hope you found some new inspiration, learnt something new, or gained a fresh perspective. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd be so grateful if you please leave a 5-star review, as it really helps the show get in the ears of new listeners, plus it takes 5 seconds. If you're keen for more strategies and insights, then head over to Instagram and follow RS Speech Pathology.